very good to see you, and I hope you're safe. I think this is the first day you've actually had power since the start of this week. This has been going on for some days now. Where are we right now where things stand?
So today we saw a lot of people have power restored to their homes. The issue today was really water. My parents included don't have any water at all. Major cities, Houston and Austin, still under a boil notice. Obviously, that was a challenge when you didn't have power if you had an electric stove. But now some homes don't have any water supply at all. So the cities are working really hard to distribute bottled water, to get water pressure up and running so that that can be restored. But it's certainly been a long day and a long week in Texas.
Yeah, certainly. My cousin is in Texas, and he says the second he gets a moment of the power coming on, he fills up his tub and every bowl he can find for water. What's next, Rachel? Is this just becoming now a political conversation on what Texas needs to do to make sure this never happens again?
It's certainly becoming that, and I think what was so interesting was to see how quickly it became politicized. As early as Monday and Tuesday, the conversation was wind versus natural gas, and I think as the week went on, it became a little bit more nuanced. The folks that I have been talking to this week who really specialize in the power market and the Texas power market specifically, they say that it's much more system-wide than just looking at one fuel source versus another. And actually, natural gas was the fuel that came up the shortest when looking across the board. I was talking to some folks in the Permian today, and they were talking about how they were so impacted because they rely on the grid to power production. So they had natural gas wellhead freeze-offs, but then they also couldn't have power to produce gas. And the power plants didn't have gas to produce power, and it became what this source called a death spiral.
Rachel, in Europe, there's a lot of high voltage transmissions. In the United States, Texas has really this exceptionalism in terms of their grid. For international audience, can you explain why this situation happened in Texas? Why it hit Texas power grid different than could ever see really anywhere else? Because they are so reliant. If you could just explain those dynamics.
Yeah, so in other places, you might be able to rely on other grids if you're in need, or if they're in need, you can help them out. But we're kind of off in our own little island here in Texas. We also have a deregulated power market since '99, and we also don't have a forward capacity market. So there are a lot of things that make the Texas power market unique, and I think all of those elements are going to be something that need to be looked at as we try to figure out what exactly happened and how we can prevent it moving forward.
I know you also focus on what happens in the Permian, Rachel. We have a number of refineries starting to come online, some wells, but it was a huge blow to the market, 4 million barrels a day, 40% of U.S. capacity. When can we see full capacity restored?
So today I heard that folks who are reliant on the grid for their operations are starting to go to the utilities, and they're saying, okay, if you give me 8 megawatts of power, I can 40 times that for what you would be able to produce with that gas that I'm going to give you. And so just how on the way down, there was kind of this negative feedback loop where the power plants weren't giving supply to the Permian, and the Permian couldn't give gas supply to the power plants. They're pitching it as, okay, we can help bring power generation capacity back online by supplying you with natural gas. Now that we don't have to divert all of our power to the hospitals and to the folks who need it most, they're saying that we can help the grid get back up to speed as fast as possible. So I think it'll be interesting to see as operators pitch that as a way to move forward. But I think ultimately it's going to take, 7 to 10 days or so, at least a week for a lot of this to fully come back to normal.